Hey up YouTubers, Simon B here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all keeping safe out there. As you can see, we're back in the garage. I've got the Ducati in bits. So you've probably seen the first ride out video a couple of weeks ago. You've seen the update of the brakes and everything. Had a few runs out on it. I found the clutch wasn't very good. It was slipping a little bit as we were letting it out, and last weekend it started grabbing. So if it starts grabbing, it starts wearing, more surface area to get hold of. So I came home from the ride out and I took it to bits, and that's why we're in this position at the moment. Then I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute, I'll show you guys and girls how to change a clutch. So if you fancy knowing how to change a clutch on a Ducati Hypermotard S, or basically any other motorcycle that has a dry clutch or a wet clutch, stick around and, as they say, stay tuned. You're probably all thinking, how do you know that your clutch is gone? Well, it does a few different things really. It either slips in a high gear. When you rev, the revs will go up but the bike won't go any faster, or it starts grabbing when you start to let the clutch out. And this thing started acting like a jack-in-the-box. It was just grabbing as you trying to let the clutch out. So we got into this position. We've took the side casing off with a gasket. This is a dry clutch, so there's no oil in this. Now, the only difference that you would have if this was a wet clutch, you don't even have to drop the oil out of, usually, you don't have to drop the oil out of a wet clutch bike, is put it on its side stand. All the oil would go to the other side of the engine and not come out of the clutch cover. The clutch on a wet clutch and a dry clutch is basically exactly the same. It has steel plates and has friction plates and it has springs. That's all it is. And they go into the clutch basket in a certain way. Sometimes you have a thicker plate on the outside, a thicker plate on the very inside, in various different ways. So as you're taking it out, make sure you just understand which plates start first. Sometimes you'll get a friction plate that'll start first. On this Ducati, it's a steel plate, then a friction plate, then a steel plate, then a friction plate, and at the back there's two steel plates. It's just different. So when you take it apart, just make sure you just understand exactly what it is. There's all your clutch friction plates. Take them out in the Pacific order, and they just come out like that, and make sure you know what starts and what doesn't start. So that's the position we're in at the moment. We're going to have a clean up of the basket. They're dead simple really. All it is, like I say, is 6 bolts, a few springs, a plate, and 8 friction plates and 8 steel plates. But just take them out in the way that they were supposed to come out, and put them back in the same way that they're supposed to go in. These bolts here only nip up to around about 7 Newton meters, between 5 and 7 Newton meters, which is nothing. So I'll get this cleaned up and we'll get it back together, eh? So one of the only differences between a dry clutch, the difference between installing a dry clutch and a wet clutch is, if this was a wet clutch, what you would do with your new friction plates is you would soak them in the oil that you use in the engine. So you just get a little bit of a tub and put some oil in that you use in the engine and soak them in. Usually the best thing to do is to soak them overnight, and then once they're soaked and wet, then you can install them back into the bike. So we've had a good clean around. We've cleaned the inside of the basket, the outside of the basket. We've cleaned all the steel plates. So these are the 2 plates that are in the back. I believe there is some sort of an anti-rattle kit for this clutch. I think you can get a couple of springs that go in that sort of tighten the whole pack back up, but I don't know. I'm just putting standard ones back in. So yeah, let's get this clutch back together. On the friction plates, there's no right and wrong way to do them. Same as the steel plates. In the manual, there's only one thing that you have to do, and on the pressure plate, you can see there's an arrow there. That lines up with a mark that's on this plate pins, and there's a mark across there that arrow has to have that pin into it. Why, I don't know. So let's put these back together. So that's a friction plate and a steel plate. We have a friction plate and a steel plate. That's all the steel plates and friction plates back in. It's relatively dead easy. So the mark on the pressure plate goes with the mark on the pin. The next step is to put the springs in. I'm just going to clean these springs because I haven't cleaned them, so we'll be back in a couple of secs. So that's the springs all nice and clean. The springs have a tolerance as well. They have a tolerance on the Ducati Hypermotard S of 41mm. I've measured all these and they are actually under tolerance, but I'm just going to put these in for now. They're only I think about 0.4 out, so it's not really a biggie, and they're dead easy to change. This is a clutch spring. It has a collet that goes on top of it, and then it has the I think it's M5, I think it is, it will be, with cap head screw in it. So yeah, within the manual they recommend just to put a little bit of engine oil onto the end of the screw, so it's well lubricated and doesn't hopefully cross thread, and it goes in easy because you're pulling against a spring. So when you're winding these in, just make sure that they're in properly, because you know we're only talking small tolerances here, and it'd be quite easy to cross thread this. It's probably the internal of the basket's probably only aluminium, and this is steel. You could soon damage something if you weren't careful. So that's why I'm only using a quarter drive at this precise moment, just to you get the feeling for it. So all I'm doing now is just winding that in, because it's quite a long cap head screw. Just a little bit easier. I'm just winding it in just so it touches the face of the outer plate. And then once we've done that, we'll torque them up. So like I say, it's only between 5 and 7 Newton meters. Not a lot. One of the issues of being that low is most of the torque wrenches that you get probably start off around about 20. So this is a torque driver. I'm still waiting for my Wira torque handle. It's between 5 and 7, so I've set it at 6. So we started with the top one, so we're going in a diagonal and opposite, same as what you would do with a car wheel. Your nuts on your car wheel, and do it opposite. So yeah, it's not a lot, is it? So everything works there. So pressure plates seated correctly onto the pin. All the plates are in, and that's basically how to change a clutch on the Ducati Hypermotard S. And also, it's exactly the same on any other motorbike with clutch plates in it, whether it be dry or wet. The only difference between the dry and the wet one is the friction plates on the wet one. You would soak them, come overnight, before you install them into the bike. What you don't want them to do is the first time you use the clutch is glaze them. So relatively easy. Well, it is dead easy. We took 6 bolts out of the cover. We took 6 bolts out. We took them out in an orderly fashion, put them back in an orderly fashion, torque them back up, and jobs are reeling. So there you go, YouTubers. How to change the clutch plates on basically a motorcycle. I know we did it on the Ducati, the Hypermotard S, but basically exactly the same on any other bike. If it's a wet clutch, put it on its side stand. They're usually on the other side. Usually, I'm not saying they all are, So you don't even have to drain the oil out of it, just keep it clean around. You probably need a new clutch gasket for it. This being a dry clutch, not really an issue. I am looking probably to open that clutch up because I believe that it'll get rid of the crud and the crap out of it, and make it probably last a little bit longer and keep it cool. If you thought that video was quite informative and makes you want to go out and change the clutch on your motorcycle, please give it a big thumbs up. Like I said, this stuff is relatively easy. You don't need a PhD to do this sort of stuff. It's just tightening and untightening. When you do take stuff apart, if you're a bit conscious of exactly how it came apart, just photograph it. As you take a step out, you know, just be conscious of how you take it apart, because it'll only go back together the same way. So, thanks very much to all you people out there. Down below you'll find that there's a link to a website called Coffee. You don't have to buy me a coffee, but if you would, I would be very, very humble to it, and whoever does will get a shout out on the videos. I'm not doing a Patreon at the moment because I just don't have time to do stuff like that, to give you boys and girls insider information. I'd love to, but with a full-time job and everything. Thanks very much for joining us. If you've just stumbled across us again, don't forget, I think at the moment we're up to nearly 90% of you people that are watching this video probably now aren't subscribed, so do us a favour, go on, ring that, click that subscribe button, ring that bell. Every time I upload a video you'll get a notification, which is 7:30 on a Saturday morning, so you don't really need to know that. So if you're out there riding, don't forget, whatever you're riding, may it be a push bike, a motorbike, a 50cc or a 1000cc, even bigger, it doesn't matter. Ride safe, be safe and keep safe, and as they say, they do, don't they? See you soon.